When I say the term literally me, what comes to mind? Patrick Bateman, perhaps? Officer K? Bad cop? Maybe, but there is one Sigma male that rises above all else as the king of all Sigma males. Well, not really, that would probably have to go to Patrick, but I'm talking about Saul Goodman. But what if I told you Sal Goodman should actually be called Sal Simpman, 'cause he's actually a simp? Jesus freaking Christ, what is this opening? Forget everything up until this point, none of it matters. So my dad does this really goofy funny thing called piracy, where he basically illegally copies and downloads movies. Am I allowed to say that? Probably, I don't know, I'm just gonna say it anyway. And there were two movies in his collection that by complete coincidence ended up right next to each other. To Hell and Back, a war movie from the 1950s, and Hell and Back, a stop motion from 2015. Now, in case it wasn't obvious, I won't really be talking about To Hell and Back, because, that one doesn't have the man. A few years back, my dad offered to watch this movie with me, but I declined because I thought it would be too scary. Recently, I was up late one night, everyone else was asleep, and I thought, why not finally give it a try after all these years? See what it is. And my God, I am so glad I did not watch this movie with my dad, because this, oh boy. Spoilers, but they say the word vagina every 5 minutes. So the story follows three carnies, Remy, Kurt, and TJ Miller. They find the Necronomicon or something, and they make like a blood pact on it that involves like eating a mint. I don't know, I forgot what it was. But since they're not able to fulfill it, a giant portal to hell opens up, and they all get dragged down. Kurt gets dragged away by a bunch of demons, and then he dies. So Remy the Rat and TJ Miller must embark on a journey through hell to save him. Along the way, Remy and TJ Miller meet Dima the Demon, who agrees to help them if they help her find her dad. Meanwhile, Kurt is helping the devil get Hell back on track, since apparently Hell has been kind of sucking at torturing people lately. This is actually probably my favorite part of the movie. The group finds out that the only person that can get them out of Hell is Orpheus, who also, surprise surprise, is Dima's real dad. I'm surprised his name wasn't Hugh the Human. You could call this a nitpick, but nothing about Orpheus makes any sense. It's explicitly stated that Greek mythology is canon, even though if it were, then this would be Hades, not Hell. And also, it's even implied that he, grew up in Hell when he was a kid. One of the worst scenes in the entire movie is when Orpheus tries to kiss Dima. Now this does make sense in the context of his character, but this is after he already found out she was his daughter, so it just comes off as really weird and creepy, and I don't like it. Now is probably a good time to talk about how the movie handles its jokes. 95% of this movie's humor is just cursing and sex stuff. I'm not saying immature jokes are always bad, you can definitely still like them, and I still didn't really find them that awful, but I could understand if other people hated them. I feel like the over-the-top jokes are probably just the most entertaining part of the movie because whether you love them or hate them, they're still very outrageous and they grab your attention all the time. Although halfway through they do start to get kind of annoying. Keep in mind this is coming from someone who has a pretty in-the-middle opinion on immature jokes. Now, surprisingly, not every joke in this movie is about sex, since there are some, I guess, air quotes, wholesome jokes here and there. There's like a running gag about Taco Bell or something. I don't remember. I feel like even though the jokes kind of make it worth watching, they kind of ruin the story. For example, early on, Remy has a flashback to when him and all his friends were kids. I thought this was going to set up the, I guess, main arc of the movie going forward, but it doesn't. Instead, they just kind of make a joke about self-harm and then completely gloss over it. Remy's whole main character arc does feel pretty all over the place. Like, he just kind of straight up ditches TJ Miller at one point just because he feels like it, and then ends up going back to him like 5 minutes later. Oh, and by the way, he saves the day by sucking himself off. Yeah, that's his grand old character arc, figuring out how to suck himself off so he can get everyone out of hell. Bob Odenkirk's whole goal in this movie is to get with an angel named Barb. And yeah, he is a major simp. Now you see, Barb doesn't really act how you normally expect an angel to act. She's a lot more promiscuous. For example, every time she descends from heaven, she does it by sliding down a stripper pole. Now, Barb's inclusion got me thinking. So all the demons in this universe, including the devil himself, are portrayed as complete idiots. And Barb is the only angel we meet, and we do get a mention of God, but we don't actually see God anywhere, and that kind of got me thinking. If God and the other angels did show up, how would they have acted? Like, why exactly was this movie about, like, hell and the devil, specifically? The devil is portrayed as a loser simp, yet worshipping the devil is what ends up saving the day in the end, since at the end of the movie they go back to the carnival and they find out that the Necronomicon thing ended up earning them a bunch of money. Firstly, a movie that chooses to be about hell and the devil has absolutely nothing to say about religion. Like, I feel like if you're gonna go that route, there should be, like, some level of satire or just anything about the topic that you choose. And secondly, the whole movie kinda didn't really need to happen, since if they didn't go to hell, they still would have gotten all the money, and they still probably would have spent it on the carnival anyway. There really was no lesson learned or change made. There are a lot of other things that this movie kind of reminded me of, but they're all things that I feel did what it did, but better. I think the most underrated part of the movie is honestly like the devil running out of ideas to torture people. I feel like that actually is a really unique, like funny idea about the devil and how he has to like ask Kurt to help him come up with new ideas and stuff. It kind of reminds me of that one Smiling Friends episode. But this doesn't last very long since Bob Odendevil does end up just betraying Kurt almost immediately because he wants to use him as like a sacrifice for this big ritual so he can earn Barb's approval or something. I don't know, just like cliche bad guy stuff. In the end, they defeat the devil in such a just. I don't even know. So basically, they find a tree that's voiced by Bob Belcher, and he's the same tree that, let's just say, traumatized. Yeah, traumatized Orpheus when he was a little kid. And they want him to do that same traumatic act on the devil to distract him so they can escape. So he does. The Bob Odenkirk devil gets assaulted by Bob Belcher Tree. It's very strange. And something else, and this is actually something that I've noticed in like other stuff too, not just this movie, but at the end of the movie, Dima goes with them back to Earth, but they never address the fact that she's a demon. She's this purple lady walking around among humans, and none of them seem to really notice. Like, it's not the first time I've seen this happen in something before, where like humans don't acknowledge the obvious creature just walking around. Like, I think it's fine for them to be fine with it, but they have to, at the very least, address it somehow. Now, overall, there are really two ways to view this movie, from a critical perspective and from just an enjoyment perspective. If you want a character-driven movie about story and life lessons, then this is definitely not the movie for you. But if you're someone who doesn't mind over-the-top, immature humor, then I think you probably could get a kick out of it. You know, grab a friend who hasn't seen it and maybe watch it with them. And yes, I did enjoy watching this movie. There are certainly worse movies out there. In fact, even before right before I saw this, I saw a different movie that was like really bad. It was so bad it made me want to watch this. But I still just kind of can't help but feel disappointed by it. I had waited several years to watch this movie, and the reason why I waited so long is because I thought it would be like really scary or really depressing, but then I finally got to it and it was just this? Stop motion is something that has always been very synonymous with the horror genre, and the fact that a literal Pinocchio movie is scarier and more interesting than an R-rated movie about hell is just baffling to me. Not to diss the Pinocchio movie, I love the Pinocchio movie. And I get that Hell and Back is meant to be a comedy and not a horror, it still just feels like a glaring reminder of how animation is treated up on the big screen. Now, I think it's great that there's an R-rated animated movie, and I especially like how it's a stop-motion animated movie, and it is satisfying for what it does and what it wants to be, and it's entertaining enough to enjoy, but I still feel like we can do better. Well, anyway, I think I'm done talking about Hell and Back now. I hope you have a great day today, day or night. This has been Bradwurst, and I've never actually seen Breaking Bad. Hi, I'm Saul Badman. Did you know that sinners have rights? Well, the Necronomicon says you do.